From absolutely nothing, a reckless vision to forge a mechanical beast takes shape. Every precise drill hole is a desperate bid against complete structural failure. He pushes raw plastic to its breaking point, carving out the foundation. Time is running out as fragile components are forced into a chaotic lathe. He aggressively shaves away the weakness, demanding absolute perfection from scrap materials. Bonding the foam core, he knows one weak link will destroy everything. A relentless grind smooths the brutal imperfections, readying wheels for unforgiving terrain. Using the armor of the wheel, he establishes critical anchor points for survival. Scorching heat slices into rubber, engraving treads meant to conquer total chaos. 12 massive tires now stand as a testament to obsessive, unyielding determination. With plastic conquered, he turns to cold aluminum to forge an unbreakable spine. The raw chassis takes its first brutal hits, accepting the binding screws. A critical delivery of metal gears raises the stakes of this impossible build. A fragile paper blueprint is his only guide through this mechanical labyrinth. He violently scores the casing that must protect the beast's vital organs. Aggressively hollowing out the core, he makes room for a complex differential system. Sparks scream into the air as the main drive shaft is brutally assembled. Slipping bearings onto the shaft secures the precarious balance of the drivetrain. Toxic fumes rise as he seals the inner gears into a permanent tomb. Tiny planetary gears click into place, a microscopic victory against mechanical failure. He ruthlessly locks the axle housing together, sealing the fate of rear wheels. Every drop of adhesive is a silent prayer that this fragile shell holds. The two halves of the differential are violently merged under immense pressure. Fire warps the rigid plastic, bending the stubborn material to his absolute will. Steel screws violently bite into plastic, finalizing the armor of the rear axle. A single, flawless bevel gear emerges as the beating heart of the transmission. He violently rips a tiny bearing from its old shell for a new purpose. The grinder howls in agony, shaping the critical pinion shaft with zero margin. The pinion slides into the housing, a terrifying moment where physics must align. He rapidly secures the cover, trapping the explosive kinetic energy waiting inside. The outer hubs are aggressively slammed onto the axles, completing the drive assembly. Locking down the wheel mounts, he knows a single loose bolt means disaster. Massive dual tires are finally bolted on, grounding the beast to hard reality. He relentlessly tightens the rim screws, refusing to let brutal terrain defeat him. The completed rear tandem is slammed down, a heavy victory finally realized. But there is no rest. A second, complex front axle must be forged immediately. He pours adhesive into the front differential, knowing steering relies on this bond. The power drill violently drives screws home, sealing the steering axle's ultimate fate. Universal joints are precariously attached, a desperate solution to give the beast agility. Locks the microscopic pins, praying the steering mechanism won't shatter under torque. Steering knuckles are fiercely glued, solidifying the machine's ability to navigate pure chaos. A metal tie rod is forcefully bolted on, forcing the front wheels together. The steering linkage flexes, proving this monstrous creation can actually be fully controlled. Front tires are aggressively mounted, transforming scattered parts into a rolling mechanical threat. He relentlessly tightens the steering brackets, bracing for the brutal impacts to come. A precarious metal rod connects the axles, a risky gamble for synchronized steering. The drill spins the chaotic assembly, testing if the reckless steering gamble holds. He rips open a pack of clock springs, seeking a crazy suspension solution. Snapping the hardened steel is a violent fight against the material's immense tension. Sparks violently erupt as he slices the brutal steel into heavy leaf springs. Stacking the steel blades, he builds a suspension capable of surviving absolute hell. Grinder aggressively carves the volatile spring stack before it explodes violently apart. He forcefully drives bolts through the steel, anchoring suspension to its plastic mounts. Toxic glue floods the brackets, a desperate bid to hold tons of virtual weight. The drill tears through metal brackets, opening pathways for critical suspension pivot pins. Violently hammers the pivot pins, locking the massive rear suspension arm securely. Heavy rear suspension is aggressively bolted to the rigid spine of the beast. A desperate mechanical linkage is formed, allowing the rear axles to walk over devastation. He locks the heavy rear axles onto the leaf springs, finalizing the rear footprint. Bending thick steel brackets is a fierce struggle to keep the machine upright. The drill screams against hardened metal, fighting to create a single crucial mounting hole. He recklessly bolts the tension steel to the chassis, hoping fragile screws hold. Screws tear into the chassis rail, permanently locking the suspension into the war zone. The raw chassis flexes perfectly, a massive, victorious moment in this chaotic journey. But the front is still naked. He softens steel for custom front leaf springs. He ruthlessly bolts smaller leaf springs to the heavy front steering axles. Desperation sets in as he drills the final holes to mount the front suspension. The intricate front suspension is slammed onto the chassis, preparing to carry the engine. Frantically glues a custom bracket, risking everything on a tiny piece of plastic. The massive rolling chassis touches the ground, a skeletal monster ready for its heart. Back to the grinder, he savagely cuts tiny gears to build the brutal transfer case. Slipping precarious gears onto bearings, he gambles the entire drivetrain on this tiny box. He recklessly floods the gearbox with superglue, permanently sealing spinning metal chaos inside. Heavy grease is violently packed into the gears to stop them from self-destructing. The central nervous system is aggressively bolted down into the belly of the beast. Telescopic drive shafts are slammed into place, finally connecting the monstrous front and rear. He frantically tightens tiny set screws, knowing a single slip will sever power. Connecting universal joints is a frustrating battle against tight clearances and high torque demands. He violently secures the final drive shaft, completing the intricate mechanical nervous system. The entire colossal drivetrain spins flawlessly, a terrifying mechanical symphony coming alive. The brain of the machine arrives, a high-tech radio system ready to command chaos. He unboxes the massive battery and heavy-duty servo, preparing to shock the beast awake. Massive, brutal electric motor is violently forced into the chassis, demanding ultimate power. The drill violently punches through steel to secure the explosive heart of this machine. He brutally locks the motor shaft to the transfer case, sealing the flow of power. A precarious metal rod connects the servo, a desperate gamble for steering control. He violently screws the steering servo down, hoping it contain the monstrous tires. Connecting the linkage is the final step before the electrical beast fully awakens. He recklessly slams the battery connector in, sending raw voltage surging through the system. Tires violently scream to life, the beast finally responding to his absolute command. The terrifying machine rolls forward, dominating the floor in a moment of pure triumph. Massive, victorious test drive proves the chaotic pile of scrap is now a conqueror. The blade violently punches through plastic, gouging out the windows of this armored shell. Scorching flames force the rigid cabin walls to bend, bending reality to his vision. Savagely scores the plastic panels, preparing to snap the intricate cab shapes apart. Tires violently tear away the excess plastic, revealing the raw skeleton of the cabin. Toxic fumes billow as he frantically glues the cab doors together before they collapse. He savagely slices out front cooling vents, giving the monstrous truck room to breathe. The side panels stand ready, aggressive armor plates for an unstoppable, home-built titan. Fender howls, shaping curved fenders to protect the beast from brutal impacts. He meticulously aligns the roof panel, sealing the cabin to survive an impending apocalypse. The structural ribs are slammed on, reinforcing the cab against catastrophic rollovers. Basic shell is finally assembled, a hollow fortress waiting for its final details. He cuts a fragile plastic strip, a precarious frame for the thick windshield. A frantic rush of superglue secures the frame, fortifying the driver's vulnerable position. The roof ribs are aggressively glued down, giving the truck an aggressive, militaristic profile. The cat claims the hollow cabin, a brief, chaotic moment of calm in this war. He violently evicts the cat and glues in the final trim to complete the facade. The furious grinder obliterates rough edges, violently transforming scrap into a polished weapon. He meticulously carves the brand logo, an arrogant signature on this chaotic masterpiece. The letters are violently glued down, branding the beast with a name it earned. He aggressively snips the overhang ribs, finalizing the aggressive aerodynamic shape. Rear cab wall is slammed on, permanently closing the driver's compartment off from danger. This grinding smooths every seam, hiding the chaotic origins of this plastic titan. The magnificent, armored cab drops onto the massive chassis, a staggering symbol of absolute victory. Tiny micro hinges are ruthlessly screwed into the raw plastic doors, demanding absolute precision. A custom plastic latch is born from scraps, securing the driver's cage against unseen threats. Nervous electrical wiring snakes through the chassis, preparing to awaken this dormant mechanical beast. A heavy reinforcement plate is bolted down, anchoring the foundation for the brutal work ahead. The drill violently pierces the frame again, making way for the steering's critical lifelines. Plastic is brutally snapped and scored, forcing it to bend to his iron will. Toxic adhesive permanently fuses the shattered fragments back into an impenetrable, solid outer shell. Relentless sanding smooths the jagged wounds before the heavy front grille is forcefully applied. The battered plastic emerges from the dust, reshaped into a dangerously sharp, jagged edge. A screaming drill punches through the armor, leaving behind perfect holes for mounting hardware. Heavy front grille is carefully aligned, cementing the aggressive and blunt face forever. Fully armored cab is cautiously inspected, checking the alignment of the reinforced side steps. Raw materials are relentlessly fed to the screaming blade, preparing the next vital modification. An oversized mirror is welded to the door, a necessary eye for navigating impending chaos. Fragile inner support beams are fused into the cabin, fortifying the vulnerable plastic exterior. Toxic cement reinforces the delicate windshield frame, preparing it to hold the brutal wiper system. Cold steel is twisted and tortured on the anvil, forming an unbreakable heavy-duty linkage. The drill violently bites into the steel rod, creating a pivot point for the wipers. A delicate internal mechanism is pinned together, ensuring the wipers strike with violent precision. The tiny steel joints are tightened until they scream, leaving zero room for structural failure. The completed metal assembly is shoved into the cab, an alien parasite taking root. A custom black box is forged, destined to house the glowing digital heartbeat. The dashboard is violently sliced open, carving out a space for the critical voltage monitor. Digital pulse is locked into the control panel, confirming the beast is breathing. Sparks fly as the saw consumes the plastic, shaping the foundations of the steering wheel. Wings emerge from the violent dust, crucial components for the upcoming heavy-duty traction. More excess weight is mercilessly trimmed away, leaving only pure, functional muscle behind. The final components of the steering wheel are fused, creating an instrument of absolute command. The steering column is violently slammed into place, displaying the brutal center of control. Metal fuses the critical ignition wires, sealing the electrical fate of the dangerous machine. The high-voltage artery is connected, sending a massive shock of power through the dormant frame. Twin rigid seats are welded to the floor, awaiting fearless pilots for the impending trial. Geometric shapes are fused together, forming a claustrophobic and commanding driver's control console. With the interior sealed, the entire cabin is fortified, bracing for the brutal work ahead. Fully armored cab is cautiously lowered, mating perfectly with the heavy iron spine below. Vital electronic organs are forcefully crammed into the tight shell, a chaotic web of control. Twin steel beams are violently bolted down, extending the chassis for a massive load capacity. Massive blue armor plates are laid out, the raw blueprints for a colossal hauling bed. Toxic cement fuses the corners together, raising the impregnable walls of the cargo fortress. Every seam is drenched in adhesive, ensuring the container will never buckle under extreme pressure. Angled deflector plates are slammed into the sides, designed to shed punishing blows from rocks. Exterior skeleton ribs are welded on, bulking up the fragile skin into military-grade armor. Long reinforcing bars run down the flanks, bracing the beast against catastrophic structural failure. Tiny end caps seal the hollow bones, leaving absolutely no weak points exposed to danger. Crucial pivot blocks are locked into the rear, the fulcrum point for dumping unimaginable weight. Base rails are fused to the underbelly, preparing the bed to endure violent collisions. The carriage is heavily braced, transforming a fragile box into a brutal load-bearing monster. The massive rear gate is brutally chopped from the sheet, ready to trap heavy cargo. Thick protective lips are fused around the gate, guaranteeing it won't shatter under an avalanche. Matching steel anchors are aggressively glued to the spine, preparing to bear the ultimate burden. Toxic cement reinforces the tailgate hinges, a desperate attempt to hold back thousands of pounds. A steel pin is driven through the joints, permanently chaining the bucket to the frame. A tiny plastic claw is forged, finalizing the complex mechanism to contain the raging fury. A solid locking bar is shoved through the claws, an unbreakable deadbolt for the gate. The steel bar snaps into position, confirming the cargo hold is now an inescapable prison. The heavy mechanical skeleton is violently inverted, forcefully mated to the armored blue bucket. A black marker scores a lethal line across the plastic, marking the point of execution. A dangerous release lever is fused on, holding the explosive power of the bed back. Lethal connection is tightly glued, securing the brutal mechanical marriage of bed and beast. A tiny screw bites into the rod, locking the brutal sliding mechanism permanently in place. The metal linkage is fiercely screwed together, a complex web controlling the massive dump release. The guide rail is slammed near the tires, ensuring the bed drops with accuracy. Spring violently snaps back, a tense mechanical muscle ready to unleash the devastating payload. A tiny but vital spacer is wedged near the drive shaft, preventing catastrophic mechanical friction. The bed is hoisted by hand, the massive structure revealing its staggering, intimidating height. Thick blue pipes are brought to the slaughter, destined to become the hydraulic heart. The blade severs the plastic, amputating a piece to form the invincible hydraulic titan. Rubber O-ring is aggressively stretched over the piston, guaranteeing a ruthless, airtight seal. The final pressure cap is flooded with glue, permanently entombing the complex pneumatic guts inside. Another sacrificial ring is sliced from the pipe, a crucial spacer for the high-pressure system. The inner shaft is violently shoved into the chamber, a perfect fit for maximum power. A second rubber seal is forced on, double-locking the dangerous pressure of the artificial muscle. The telescopic arm is forcefully pieced together, completing the terrifying reach of the lifting mechanism. More brutal seals are layered inside the pipe, armoring it against devastating internal fluid pressure. The toxic adhesive creates a perfect union, ensuring the hydraulic cannon never blows out. The cold steel piston rod is rammed into the housing, completing the invincible lifting arm. Pliers savagely crush a retaining ring onto the steel shaft, ensuring it withstands explosive forces. A final rubber seal is stretched over the steel core, preparing to harness unimaginable pressure. The steel core is shoved deep into the plastic vein, a perfect union of power. The telescopic arm is violently ripped open, revealing a terrifying reach capable of lifting mountains. Tiny metal screws are driven into the cap, a desperate measure to contain explosive force. Massive hydraulic cannon is fully compressed, a gleaming bomb waiting to detonate. A heavy hole is punched through the base, preparing to anchor this massive lifting force. The artificial muscle flexes to its limits, demonstrating a staggering capability to move heavy earth. The heavy foundation is bolted to the bed, providing an uncheckable anchor for heavy lifts. A solid iron pin is slammed through the joint, locking the explosive lifter in place. Curved armor plate is fused together, brutally shaped to protect vulnerable wheels from debris. The shattered pieces are combined into a rigid arc, forming an impenetrable mudguard shield. Brackets are welded to the shield, ready to impale themselves onto the iron skeleton. The heavy armor plates are bolted to the flanks, completely sealing the undercarriage from collisions. A heavy steel bracket is bolted to the flank, an emergency lifeline carrying a spare. The massive blue fuel cell is bolted tight to the frame, sitting dangerously close to chaos. The roaring electric pump is violently clamped to the spine, the beating heart of hydraulics. Pliers savagely twist a clear artery onto the pump, ready to inject high-pressure fluid. Thick vein is shoved onto the cylinder nozzle, routing explosive pressure to the cannon. The return line is violently jammed into the reservoir, completing the lethal circulatory system. A quick wipe removes the toxic residue, revealing the gleaming heart of the beast's power. A switch is thrown, and the hydraulic spine screams to life, violently thrusting the bed. Reaching its terrifying apex, the metal monster pauses, displaying its towering, intimidating strength. In a reckless display of confidence, the creator mounts the beast, challenging its structural limits. The brutal mechanical marriage is temporarily severed, preparing the Titan for its final transformation. A frail boarding ladder is fused to the towering wall, the only escape from inside. A heavy rear crash bar is cemented in place, designed to obliterate anything behind it. The heavy iron spine is fully armored, a staggering symbol of absolute, uncompromising victory. Toxic cans of industrial paint are brought forth, ready to blast the beast into existence. Heavy tires are aggressively masked off, protecting the rubber from a deadly silver shower. A violent hiss of silver spray obliterates the plastic, transforming cheap hubs into cold steel. The fuel cell is drenched in metallic armor, a shining beacon strapped to the dark chassis. A cloud of deep black venom coats the iron spine, turning the skeleton into a nightmare. Blood-red paint is violently blasted onto the cargo bed, a terrifying symbol of destructive intent. The freshly blackened chassis sits like a charred skeleton, exuding a menacing aura of torque. The protective skin is violently ripped off the tires, revealing pristine, shining metal claws beneath. The massive rubber treads are brutally bolted to the axles, giving this beast its mobility. Polished hydraulic cannon is slammed onto the dark frame, a gleaming pillar of strength. Red armored head is violently dropped onto the neck, completing this resurrected mechanical demon. The massive cargo bed is locked into place, becoming the beast's destructive back. Beneath the shell, a complex nightmare of drive shafts waits for raw power. Fragile shields are meticulously cut, preparing the only defense against the brutal elements. Glue seals the black frames, locking out the chaos of the coming storm. Warning beacons are wired up, signaling the imminent awakening of this mechanical demon. The siren is secured, and a chaotic web of electrical veins is revealed. Piercing lead eyes are slotted into the bumper, giving the monster its sight. The tangled nervous system is frantically tested, trying to tame the erratic machine. Hours of agony later, the electronic guts are forcefully crammed into the cab. The undercarriage is secured, sealing the pounding metal heart of the resurrected Titan. Raw voltage surges, and the headlights slice through the darkness of the workshop. The fully built Titan stands ready as remote commands trigger its first movements. Warning lights flash wildly, and the heavy machine finally rolls into the dirt. It effortlessly crushes obstacles, climbing onto the concrete with absolute, unyielding dominance. Reversing into the wild, the beast prepares to face the unforgiving, chaotic environment. Its massive treads dig into a steep incline, challenging the very laws of gravity. A reckless decision is made to load the struggling giant with a crushing payload. Tons of earth are poured in, pushing the groaning chassis to its breaking point. Fully burdened, it reverses down the perilous path, fighting the immense, swallowed weight. The relentless machine navigates the concrete, carrying its massive burden without a single flinch. It skillfully maneuvers past scattered wreckage, proving its absolute superiority over the ruins. Approaching the drop zone, the hunter prepares to unleash the earth it guarded. The massive hydraulic cannon screams into action, forcing the agonizing weight upward. Bed reaches its zenith, ready to violently eject the heavy, suffocating cargo. Earth cascades down in a triumphant release of pressure from the mechanical spine. Now gloriously unburdened, the beast charges straight up the treacherous mountain of sand. It conquers the summit with terrifying ease, cementing its total victory over nature. The unstoppable force prowls the wasteland, sending lesser creatures fleeing in pure terror. The armored door swings open, revealing the empty, waiting soul of the machine. It backs up once more, scanning the horizon for its final, impossible challenge. Suddenly, a tiny, fearless pilot boards the rig, risking everything on this wild ride. The boy commander takes his place, transforming the destructive beast into an invincible chariot. Against all odds,